Hi, this is Jennie Walker and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today I want to talk to you about the RealReal and all of the stories that have been in the news recently about their authentication process. There was a message from the CEO that came out today and was emailed to people who are customers of the RealReal, talking about how their company had been singled out with an effort for people to discredit what they're doing, and basically addressed the negative press that had ensued about their authentication processes. You know, it's kind of interesting to me as someone who is a fan of the RealReal and yet is very aware of the problems that they face and the challenges they have as a company, because I myself run a consignment store with a physical location and online, and I know the situations are similar but on a much smaller scale. And what was fascinating to me is that Julie Wainwright chose the word discredit. And as I thought about that, I thought it was a really good word to use, because all of these gotcha stories, they're almost like news stories where, like, they're investigative news stories where they're trying to uncover the truth or uncover, a murder mystery or something. But quite frankly, this is just consignment. This is just e-commerce. And it's really shocking to me to see how much people are going through to make this point. And I've done it myself. I've made the point. But there's so much more at stake now with the company being public. And I myself have bought shares of the RealReal. And when the shares went down here today, they went below $18 to $17 and some change, and I bought some because I look at it as a Macy's one-day sale every time a stock that I think has potential goes down because of some news story or some market factor. To me, it's an opportunity to buy. But my faith in the RealReal hasn't changed because of these stories, and basically I just wanted to talk about it because I think the RealReal is being singled out because as of this moment, they are basically the one company that is doing consignment business that is public right now. And many other companies have talked about joining the group of companies that are public, like Poshmark has talked about it. And there's certainly a number of other companies that are sizable who could be going public down the road, like the StockX's of the world or a ThredUp. I mean, the RealReal is just happens to be the one that's public now. And they're public in an environment where a lot of these people who are investing really don't understand what they do. They don't understand the business model. They don't understand the way women have been shopping for decades. And I have read articles where men have said, I'm so surprised by the fact that women have all these clothes in their closets they've never worn, still with the tags on them. Hello? Shopping has been a woman's sport for decades. It always have been. The ladies who lunch are the same ladies who shop. And when my mother and I used to go out shopping, we were solving all the world's problems, and the clothes were the backdrop. And we loved clothes. We consumed clothes. There's nothing rational about it. There's nothing logical about it. Women dress for other women. And these are things that women know that men don't understand. And you have mostly men in the investment community who really don't understand what consignment is. They don't understand the fact that all of this shopping that's been taking place all of the time by people with large wallets and small wallets. I mean, plenty of people have bought luxury who couldn't really afford it, who were made an aspirational purchase. Maybe they put on a credit card and paid for that Louis Vuitton bag for years. You just don't know. Or it could be the person who had the ability to buy it all at once. We don't know how people came across these luxury goods. We don't know what it took for them to buy the luxury. But it's out there. It's out there in droves. There are so many pieces of luxury in the world sitting in closets, gathering dust, not being utilized. And the RealReal has been the one to come across and take an industry that has been around since like the 40s. Consignment is not new. There's nothing new about consignment. There are plenty of local consignment shops all around the country and around the world for that matter. In the United States, there are thousands and thousands of consignment shops, small ones like my own, all around the country. There's an organization called NARTS that is basically the trade association for consignment shops. And what the RealReal has done, and I don't think that it gets talked about so closely, is the RealReal has taken an industry that already existed. Julie Wainwright did not discover consignment. It's been around for decades. You've got shops like Michael's in New York City that is either the first or the second one that was ever created. They've been around. They're on Madison Avenue in New York. Been around for decades doing what they do. And there's just nothing new about consignment. There's nothing new about, people who buy at auction. I mean, people have been reselling goods since forever. But what they've done is they've scaled it and they've put it online. They've taken it out of the brick and mortar where the companies, I think it was second time around, which was only brick and mortar stores. It had grown to be a big chain, and then they went under because they didn't go online fast enough or even at all where all the customers had gone. And so this whole thing about authentication is kind of interesting because everyone is dealing with the authentication question. Not just the RealReal. Every single one of these companies that is reselling or providing platforms for resellers, they're all dealing with authentication. They all have authentication teams, and none of us know exactly who these people are, how many there are, how they've been trained. We don't know, and we're not gonna know. And so the StockX's of the world, the ThreadUps, the Steri Collective, Depop, Grailed. I mean, how many do you want to list? There's so many out there now. And so they all have to deal with authentication. Every single consignment shop in this country has to deal with it. I deal with it every day. I've seen so many fakes, your head would spin. And it's a challenge for myself to continue to educate myself on identifying fakes. And I'm actually excited and thrilled when I realize something is not authentic. And we're all dealing with it. And so to really act like the RealReal is doing something really bad and that this company should collapse because they have put a spin on their authentication process that might not be 100% accurate, I think is wrong. I mean, I think once they went public that their responsibilities changed. I think that I also have been under the impression that they authenticated in a different way. But if you think about the scale of what they're doing and what they're trying to do, it is going to be impossible to have authenticators from Christie's or people who've worked at Tiffany's or, wherever these people looking at every single solitary piece that's coming through there. It ain't going to happen. And so they have this second tier of authenticators, so I've heard, so I've read about, I'm not there, I don't know, who aren't trained in the way that they should be. And they now have a responsibility to train those people that are looking at these goods in some form or fashion that's going to do a better job of, delivering the message that they put out there, that they're all about the authentic goods. And they make mistakes. The thing about the RealReal, why I don't think this is such a huge problem that everyone is making it out to be, is that they take care of the situation. If you get a fake, they're going to take care of it. If you think something's wrong, they're going to fix it. Their customer service has been pretty extraordinary from my own experience, and they take fakes very seriously. And so, okay, it slipped through, not a good thing, but if they take it back, give you a refund, and refund your shipping, then what's the problem? The fakes are out there. They are all over the world. And we're all doing the very best we can to identify if something's real or not. If it's not real, then the absolute most that anyone can do is give you a full refund and apologize. And unless they give you something extra beyond that, I think that a company's responsibility is to make good on it, to take it back. And they do that. All right. So where it's a challenge to authenticate on this scale is fixable. This is a fixable problem. They hire more people, they train more people, and they do a better job of it. And I think that is a solvable problem. Now, it certainly doesn't look good for these exposés that have been out there by CNBC and articles from, I guess, the New Yorker. I mean, they're popping up all over the place because this company is interesting. What they're doing is interesting. This is a game-changing time for retail. Everything has changed. There will never be the malls like there once were. There will never be the Barneys like there once was, which is so disappointing to me as someone who lived in New York and felt like Barneys was part of the fabric of the modern New York that I knew. And every single thing has changed. And you look at the number of companies involved in reselling. What's different about the RealReal is they take possession of the goods. It's physically in their hands. Someone like Poshmark, they never touch the goods. They're simply a platform, just like eBay. Mostly they don't touch the goods. They now have programs where you can send in luxury bags. And so they've started the process of handling the goods. But a lot of these other sites like Depop and Grailed and, they're not taking possession of the goods, right? So that's a subtle difference. But how easy it is now with a smartphone and an app to post a picture. Anybody can do it just from about anywhere that has the technology and the product. So you take companies that take possession of the goods like a Poshmark when you sell a luxury item. And at that point, when it's mailed into their authentication hub, I'll call it, or their headquarters, they have it in their possession. They have that opportunity to deem it real or not, authentic or not. They can also, I know from firsthand experience, deem it to be the same item you've described. I mean, as far as is the size the same, correct? Are the measurements correct? Things like that. And in that moment, they have the onus of determining if it's authentic. And once it's past their authentication, if there's a problem, it's their responsibility. The person who sold it, they've already basically, once it passes their authentication, they've basically given it their go ahead, their green stamp. So if you've sold it, you're going to get your money. Even if there's a problem, you're going to get your money because they're going to take care of it, because there's no way that they can't take care of it because it went through their authentication program, right? They can't actually say, oops, we were wrong. They can't do that. They have to guarantee it once it goes past that point. Kind of similar to the eBay Global Shipping Program where you get it to the hub, and basically once it goes through the hub and they've checked everything, they're not necessarily checking for authenticity, but they're just checking the item. You're golden once it passes that in case there's any problems. And so I think it's something really to think about. The people who are selling fakes or pushing fakes, they're criminals. They're breaking the law. And so everyone has to be mindful of figuring out a way, some sort of system to manage the flow of goods and to ensure that they're authentic. In the case of the RealReal, they are pushing so hard to grow faster and faster and push more product and have more customers and make their numbers look good for Wall Street. And so there has to be something that they're going to institute inside that's going to allow them to do a better job of that. The volume that they're producing, things are going to slip through the cracks. They just are. And so their position has been, and they have publicly said this, that they take care of it if there's something wrong. And that is, I think, the most anyone can do, because they're not breaking the law per se by allowing something to go through that's not real. They're just not doing a good job. So I guess that's the subtle question, is that they missed the opportunity to ensure that it was as it should be. And so if that's not a law-breaking activity, then I think as a company, the most that they can do is refund your money, refund your shipping, apologize, and move on to the next customer. Because it's going to happen. It happens in every consignment shop in this country is being faced with the task of having to authenticate. There is technology out there that can help you with that. There's technology that you can buy where you can scan an item and see if it has the right stitch count, or the skins are as they should be. But we're all dealing with the same thing. And so as long as it's not a law-breaking activity to misidentify something, and as long as you can correct that by taking something back and offering a refund, I think that's the most that anybody can do in a global world that has fakes upon fakes upon fakes mixed all in, all of the good stuff. I think whenever you have a company that is doing game-changing work, there's going to be a lot of criticism and a lot of questions by people who don't have their vision, who are stuck in the old way. Kind of similar to, say, Tesla, people who have basically been vocal against what the company stands for and where they're headed. And yet that game-changing idea in technology is literally taking people to Mars. It's really easy to poke holes in something that you don't understand. But this is an industry that is newly public. It's got a lot of eyes on this industry. People are still being educated about the potential that's out there. I think consignment isn't going anywhere. I think it's here to stay, and I'm fascinated by the whole thing. And as much as I've been involved in reselling for many, many, many years on different levels, I'm still flabbergasted that this is what's going on in the world today. And the difference is technology. Technology is the single reason we're having this conversation, or at least you're listening to my podcast, is technology has allowed this to happen. E-commerce has allowed this to happen. Smartphones and the ability to easily post through apps that people have created has allowed this to happen. And that's it. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I look forward to having you with me in the future. I'm lining up a number of guests now that I think you'll find very interesting, so that there's not so much monologue going on and a little more interaction. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your support. If you like what you heard, you feel free to give it some 5 stars, some reviews. Let me hear from you. I love hearing from people who are listening to the show. And remember, without an opinion, there is no podcast.